caring about it. A little under 10 minutes. Music and the countdown clock. Yeah. All right. See you in a moment. Dan, just want to let you know that dog needs to go out, so I'll be like an extra couple minutes.
Okay, no problem. You ready?
Yes, sir. Just one moment. Going right into it. Okay. Okay, just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the law would prefer. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well and this weekend. Hope you had some good time off and kicking back, relaxing. Wanted to just let you know that we're getting into part 2 of Tom Campbell. Some of it will be going over reincarnation again. That'll be like a shorter segment, but we'll also be going down the road of NDEs, OBEs, I believe, as well. And also, Dan and I will probably be talking about exiting the Matrix, or simulation, as Tom likes to call it, or whatever his terminology is these days. But anyways, I want to welcome Dan from OverwatchProject.com and Overwatch channel on YouTube, Overwatch Project on Odyssey. How you doing, brother? Great to have you with us.
I'm doing actually a lot better. Thanks to everybody out there for all their support and all the positive thoughts that you must have been sending me, because I feel pretty good.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, so I was just like thinking about the last video that we went over where he was talking about reincarnation, and it's just mind-blowing to me how he even says point blank that even when you've, basically liberated yourself or stopped coming here or finished your education, however you want to frame it, he still says, "Oh, well, you're going to want to come back anyways." Like it's essentially like you're really not done. I mean, it's mind-blowing stuff, like to just think about and consider with what he's saying.
Yes, I'm not sure how it works exactly, because when I listen to a lot of different of these so-called gurus and know-it-alls, a lot of the stuff they spout out doesn't even fit all the data. It doesn't fit the data available. So
I agree.
it's almost like they have a hypnotic effect on some people, because they seem to say stuff that if you just stop to think about it, you would be able to figure out pretty quickly that this can't be correct. But I don't understand why they have an influence over so many people.
My opinion is that most people truly do not research the data. They may listen to a case here and there, but most people, if you have a continuous spin or slant, and most of it, or not even most of it, but even like 75%, 50% of it sounds legitimate and adds up with perhaps things that you've heard in the past, then you add in like just the fact that there are complete, bullshitters out there who say they've had this experience or that one. And then you have religions kind of coming in and hijacking NDEs, like agenda driven. I mean, there's quite a few of those. I mean, but I think really what it boils down to is that most people don't have the time or are dedicated enough to be able to do it. But I mean, most people don't have the time. They're working, they might have children, they got food to put on the table, bills, and if you got children, or maybe you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40. I mean, you don't really have time to necessarily get into like the weeds and really investigate this stuff. So some people will put their faith in someone like St. Tom, that he is accurate. I mean, he works for the Monroe Institute. You know, he worked for them. You know, he worked with Bob Monroe. You know, he's been in this for a long time. He's got degrees. You know, he can't be wrong.
Yeah, that's probably correct. A lot of these different, well, religions, they just kind of grab a hold of somebody probably from, kindergarten, and then it gets embedded into your subconscious. It becomes like a program, and it's very difficult to break away from a lot of this stuff because a lot of people don't have the time, or they don't perceive they have the time. Although I really don't think there could be a more important question to answer in anyone's life here.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe spending time looking at TikTok videos or something, they can spend a couple hours a week or whatever digesting things. But then, like, there's the question of, how many are truly thinking deeper? I mean, there's a whole host of convenient answers fed to everyone by the system. All these religions, different belief systems, and they're just fed to them, and they're convenient. So people don't have to do any of the work. But you would hope that by just observation alone from existing here, that you can tell that something's wrong and something's not quite right and that we're lied to all the time. I mean, you should reach a certain age where you see that and in turn question a large portion of your beliefs at some point.
Yes. You would think so. But I've heard, I forget what his name was, one of the, it may have been somebody from Ions or Endurf, I'm not sure which. There was you hear these researchers, some of them have religious baggage. So like if they're Christian, they have this, they will admit that, oh yeah, this doesn't fit my religion, but it has to. So they kind of force it to fit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the most egregious is Randy K. I mean, I don't know if you've seen his channel, but, I try not to say anything, but, I mean, that's like one of the worst NDE channels out there.
I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
It's all slanted, religious. I mean, it's bad, really bad. There's clearly an agenda at play there. But anyways, I'll shut my mouth on that.
So is this a continuation of the same interview that we're doing? Or
Well, I have... Okay, so yeah, we are going to go back to that interview, but there was a clip that I ran across of a woman asking Tom a question about reincarnation, and this was back in June 26th of 2016. So I'm going to play that. It's kind of a short clip. It's only 5 minutes, and then we'll kind of get into some of the other stuff as well. So let's pop that up on screen. Just bear with me a moment, guys. Not that one. I want to thank Knack for the very kind super chat. I appreciate you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. It's great to see you. I hope everyone else is doing well. We are simulcasting on Dan's channel as well. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So hello to everybody on Dan's channel, Rumble and Odyssey, YouTube. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right.
You say the victim is personalizing everything.
Yes.
It's
Everything's about
they're
them.
at me.
Yeah.
I got over
It's a very self-focused place to be. You're at the center of the universe, and everything that everybody else does
It's a
affects you.
survival mechanism, though, isn't it? That's a biological program running.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Conversations with God says we don't only come back over and over again and be each other, but that we can come back over and over again and get to be ourselves over and over again, number of times. Is that anything you can confirm?
Well, it depends on what you mean by be ourselves. If you
Incarnate.
Okay, so I'm going to rewind her question because I think it's important just to hear exactly what she's saying.
Be each other. Ask another question.
Yeah.
Conversations with God says we don't only come back over and over again and be each other, but that we can come back over and over again and get to be ourselves over and over again, number of times. Is that anything you can confirm?
Well, it depends on what you mean by be ourselves. If you
Incarnate over and over as Linda.
No, you're not going to incarnate over.
Now, before he even answers, I think it's important to point out that he scoots around this question. He twists her brain. Instead of talking about what some of the data says, he like weaves in and out of her neurons and somehow wins her over. But as we move along, you're going to hear that she's looked into this topic. It's not like she's, just got into this. She's looked a little bit.
Over and over as Linda. You're going to incarnate over and over as Linda's individuated unit of consciousness.
Okay.
You see, your individuated unit of consciousness, the sum of all of your experiences, is going to keep, it's growing, it's evolving. So it takes what it has, and that's what it puts back in the game. And that will then change it a little. Next time, it puts back something a little different in the game. That's called evolution. Next time.
Okay, so see, now he's saying, you're going to continue reincarnating, and it's going to put a little bit more in the game. But what he's not saying is that sometimes, yes, actually, there is evidence for this, that we continually keep living and expanding upon our previous lives. And then, we may also want to work on, quote unquote, work on different things or be tricked into working on different things. But essentially, we have the soul group. We have a lot of how that we keep reincarnating with some of the same group and building upon our past incarnations. So she may not be, Linda, but her essence comes back and has a partial carbon copy of what she's done in the past, and can sometimes even play out identically to a previous lifetime, but then, as Tom says, adding upon that stuff. If that's not something to raise concern about, I don't know what is, Dan.
Was she also could have been implying that we have like a Groundhog Day reincarnation where you reincarnate?
Yes, that's what she's implying. Yep.
Okay. I've heard people mention this before, and I've thought about it myself. So it's basically like if you play a video game, and then how you can start a new game, but it's the same game. Mm-hmm. You can start from the beginning over again. I've not seen that in the data though. I don't remember anybody remembering.
Yeah, like reliving. Yeah, it's a smaller segment of it, but I think just by the mere fact that we often reincarnate with the same soul group, oftentimes in the same geological location. Now that can change, obviously, if depending on maybe perhaps where us as individuals and the soul group and in combination with the matrix may move to a different geographical location, but most of the time we are reincarnating within the same family and taking that baggage, that most of the time trauma from past lifetimes, and it's being reincorporated once again with the soul group. So in a sense, Groundhog Day. Is it going to be exact? No. I mean, you're going to have the same meat suit and all that stuff. No, it's going to vary, but you're still kind of in this loop, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, they're the soul pods and all this other stuff. The school, then you play a different role in the next. It's all so stupid. But I know that it obviously it happens, but it's just nobody seems to wake up to the fact this isn't getting me anywhere. It's not teaching me anything. It's just rinse, repeat, over and over again. Forgot what I was going to say, so I guess we can keep going. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Yeah, I think I worded that wrong, like how I presented it, but yeah.
Little. Next time it puts back something a little different. It's growing, it's evolving, so it takes what it has, and that's what it puts back in the game. And that will then change it a little. Next time it puts back something a little different in the game. That's called evolution. Next time it puts back something, a little different in the game, because every time it's winning, it's getting a strategy. And even when it doesn't do well, even when one of its incarnations crashes and burns, makes a lot of bad decisions, it learns from that. It says, okay, that wasn't good. I really need to work on that greed. I need to work on that anger management because, boy, I really went downhill there. You see, so now how am I going to do that? Well, it tries to come up with a good situation so it'll be able to do something positive next time. So in that way, Linda, the individuated unit of consciousness, was the sum of all of these experiences that you had, not just the one you had as Linda.
In different avatars.
Yeah, in different avatars. That goes on and on and on. But just the Linda avatar does not.
It's just one time only?
Just one
Because
time.
even Anthony Peake implies, with his idea of the daemon and the eidolon, that one of them is here, I guess the eidolon, and the daemon is the one, I guess would say the IUOC back behind, who knows everything, has seen everything, because it lived this life already. So it sees that there's a waterfall around that bend when I'm kayaking, and it says, hey, take your boat out of the water and walk a little. So if I'm not coming here another chance to be me again, I'm not having that daemon behind me.
Yes, but it's the way you define me. I don't have a chance to be me again. If you defined you as your larger consciousness, as your individual unit of consciousness, then the answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
You keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
I've got you.
But you define you as Linda, with Linda's personality, Linda's avatar, the way Linda does things, whether you're, again, an introvert or extrovert, all the things that make Linda Linda. No, that does not come back again. But if you see yourself, who am I? I'm an individuated unit of consciousness. Okay, that individuated unit of consciousness took everything that it learned
In this
you,
life packet, yeah.
in this life packet, and that then is, you're the avatar for that. Now you're going to add a little something to it, and it's going to do it again.
Got you.
But it's not.
See, you're going to add to it and do something again. Like, I think it's just ridiculous. And I think it also kind of branches off to some of the data in past life regressions, how we may, I hate to use the term obsessed, but that kind of may be a good word for it, I guess. But we're tricked into believing that we need to work off certain karma, or perhaps work on certain things, like whether it's love or empathy or even anger or hate or greed or whatever the case may be. And you could be, spending who knows how many lifetimes working out that issue, at least in accordance to how the Matrix perceives it, which in turn keeps us coming back.
Yeah. So his premise, I think, is ludicrous because what is he saying? We have to come back 60,000 times so I can figure out greed. It's totally insane. But also, I have to say this: Campbell is a master of taking simple things and making them unbelievably complex, unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah.
What you're dealing with is repeated bouts of amnesia. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Mentioned on your podcast before. Sorry if you hear a dog barking in the
That's all
background.
right.
My
It's
chihuahua
far
is
in the
not-
distance. It's all right.
He is so I mentioned this before, but there was a TV show. It had a finale. It's over now. It starred that I forget what her name is, Jamie something. She was in Marvel movies as Lady Sif. A lot of people know her as that, and Thor in the Thor movies. So they had a TV show called Blind Spot. Now, my point isn't about what the show was about, but what it explored, because basically she wakes up with complete amnesia. And as the show progresses, you get to learn, more and more about her past, and then eventually she even confronts her former memories as like a former personality that she no longer has, and I suspect that is what goes on with reincarnation amnesia. When people, like Bielman say, higher self now, I think what they're really just talking about is if you could get all your memories back, and you would then be a totally different person, or not a person, but a totally different conscious being, right? You could have a massive personality change if you remembered all these other lifetimes.
Yeah.
The problem is Campbell makes this simple problem into a complicated, nonsensical, illogical. I don't even know how how he got his scientist title. I have no idea. But the simple thing is, if you keep suffering from amnesia over and over again, every single time that you suffer from that, and it is a suffering, it is an injury to your mind, which is a non-physical mind, to your memories. Who knows if we could even totally get back these memories?
And it's an injury, like just like to your essence, to like the core of like who and what we are.
Yes,
It diminishes us down to like a very lame, limited stream of our essence or consciousness, whatever you want to term it.
Yeah, and there's been other movies and TV shows that have explored amnesia, but Blind Spot, basically the entire series was based on this premise of the main protagonist in the story. She starts off with amnesia, and then you get to learn the whole thing comes together by the end. There's a resolution. But the point is that in no way, if you just think of it, it's just amnesia, right? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing magical. Not complicated. Humans, and when you're in human form, you can suffer from amnesia right here in this lifetime, right? You could have
many times.
Right. So you could have an injury. You could sustain an injury. We know people that, have woken up from comas. They have amnesia. So it happens. So how is that? Now you take this, and now somehow they manage to say, oh, well, this is a learning experience. We're going to add some more in the next lifetime. We're going to do this. Now, what difference does it make because you have amnesia? So there is no learning.
Exactly.
There's no way. It's insane. What people have been led to believe is it's just insane. It just doesn't make any sense. In the simplest, it's just simple. Just think it's simple. It's just amnesia. That's all it is. Yeah. It's nothing that we don't understand as humans.
Yeah, and what really just drives it home is how the data clearly shows that the same narrative is being hawked, or same narratives, I should say, are being hawked over and over again, and that this is a learning experience, that we are supposed to grow and learn off of this and resolve our karma, our sinning and judgment and all this other stuff, right? That is a repetitive thread, experiencer after experience. Yeah, maybe some, depending on, won't necessarily discuss it, but it's there, like in a huge way. And the reason for driving this point home is that it goes right to what you said. It's like, how can you learn? How can you grow if you have amnesia? If you are being memory wiped lifetime after lifetime, and you're trying to work on yourself to grow as a spiritual being and to do better, then what rationality can you possibly put out there the answer that there's logic behind being memory wiped lifetime after lifetime. It makes no sense, but yet that's where all the data says. It has nothing to do with the New Age or anyone else saying anything. That is a very, very clear message that is being relayed to everybody by all the top researchers out there. All right, they're all in agreement that this is what the narrative is, and you can hear it in all these experiencer cases just by going through them. So again, this is when you have actual information backing it up and then thinking critically, logically, open that, hey, that doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to be memory wiped if we are supposedly here to learn, grow, and resolve our karma. How are we supposed to improve? How are we supposed to build upon ourselves with that being there?
Right. Like I said, in that show Blind Spot, there is a series of episodes where the character's old memories from her. Now, we're dealing here with just one memory wipe. Keep in mind that we have suffered thousands of memory wipes, right? Thousands of different personalities and identities, right? This is, I don't see this as being really helpful to ourselves. It sounds quite damaging. In the TV show Blind Spot, the character suffers through one memory wipe, and then she develops a completely different personality because she's surrounded by totally different people. She has totally different influences, and she is this good person. I don't want to give too many spoilers away if anybody wants to watch the show. Let's just say her old personality wasn't really that nice. And there's a series of episodes where she basically has all of her old memories come flooding back. This causes like a virtual battle inside of herself, with herself. And, on TV, they play that out with she's playing two different parts of the same character, one of her old memory self and one of her new memory self. Can you imagine if in the afterlife, or like Bielman with his higher self now, if you were to suddenly collide with all of these older identities that you may have had, what absolutely chaotic mess that you may end up in? I mean, I've given that some thought. Like, do you really want to remember all of these other lifetimes?
No, that's a good point.
Because now you're, if you watch what happens to her in the show, she has to, and again, we're dealing with one life, one memory wipe in the same human life. There's a major conflict. These two personalities have to merge together and become yet another kind of person. One that blends the old self with the new self. But if you're dealing with thousands and thousands, and we're talking about not just memory wipes, you're talking about living in different time periods on Earth, being a male one time, a female another time, who knows, right? Being a certain type of person here, another kind of person there. Just going, because a lot of this stuff is programmed into us, right? You've done that thing, I think it's your trailer or intro video that goes over every, the cognitive state of humans from birth to 7 years old. Yeah. And it's absolutely dreadful. We're just programmable sponges.
Early childhood development is an incredible window into how this place functions.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. There is no way that if you want to look at this place and, be sane and logical about it, that you come up with Tom Campbell's answer. Or these other people that peddle whatever nonsense they're peddling.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, just the thought of having thousands of lifetimes, and I think it's very probable. This place beats you down. It really takes a toll on the mind and body and spirit while you're here. And then it just crushes you and distracts you and gets you into the grips of the sensory addiction. And then, I mean, I don't know. We can go on and on. We've talked about it 1,000 times, but it's, oh, who knows how many thousands of times, right?
Yeah.
Anyways. All right.
Now you're going to add a little something to it, and it's going to do it again.
Got you.
But it's not going to be Linda. It's going to be some guy, right, who lives in Mongolia, who raises sheep,
Yep.
and it's not going to be Linda at all.
Okay.
Okay, but it's going to be all the stuff that Linda
Accumulated.
and helped this individuated unit of consciousness create. And it's not going to be that different from what Linda had at her core, because Linda just added a little bit to this thing, and now it's going to go again. So you can say, is it Linda? Well, almost. At the core. But look at the
But we call her
outside.
Dave now.
But yeah, but we call her Dave now, right? And different race, different sex, different job,
Country.
different personality, you know.
But that which is back behind that is the same. Only improved a little from this
Right.
life packet.
Exactly.
Plus.
Linda
But what's
plus.
behind it, what's at the core of that, yes, is what Linda started with, plus what Linda added
Grew
to it.
into.
That's
Linda was
what's at the
something before
that's what
Linda
the core did.
Linda was something before Linda.
It's a shame we can't talk to Linda. I'd like to talk to Linda. Would you, Dan?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to. I mean, a lot of these people, I can relate because, you know, when I first started my research, I was brainwashed and I was filtering everything through cognitive dissonance, religious programming, all this other crap that I had in my subconscious, in my mind. So sure. But, you know, I just had like a little, I don't know what it was, an intuition, a voice in the back of my head, an internal thought that, hey, maybe the answer lies elsewhere. Maybe the answer you're looking for has nothing to do with this garbage you're looking at. A lot of people, I don't even think they were so taught in schools and the way that politics is run and everything that they always want you to narrow things down to like two choices. They don't want you to go outside of these little boxes. If you drift outside, then you start thinking alternate theories of things that, you know, nobody ever taught you. You start thinking for yourself. That's what I think is most important. People should think for themselves, and when they get presented with a couple choices, the first reaction shouldn't be which one should I pick. It should be, well, this can't be all that I have to choose from. What else is there? You know?
Yeah. It's it goes back to what we talk about all the time. Think bigger. Think outside the box. Think, you know, beyond all of the stuff that's known or semi-known, and think about the unknown possibilities. Think about who and what and where you were, what you did, and before you even came in, not just to Earth, but to the overall matrix system. Like, there's no doubt in my mind we were doing other things. And there, you know, I don't care who you are. I don't care how many experiences are out there. There is no one out there who can claim that they have a memory, or at least a verifiable memory of existence before coming into this overall system. Everything you hear is rooted around reaffirming what's happening here and in the astral and the overall matrix system. Again, this is another red flag. It's like, if we're eternal beings, and I think most of us know that that's the case, then what the heck was going on before all this? Like, what? I mean, really, are we just going to think like, oh, the astral is it, or, you know, maybe some colors and some love and all that, and then coming back to Earth, or going maybe to other material realms, or anything like that's familiar is limiting. It's not thinking bigger. It's not thinking outside the box. Am I saying that I have excuse me, any clue about what those things are before we came in here? No, I don't know. I don't have a memory. And be careful of anyone who claims that they do. I mean, there's a few out there that make those claims, and there's very few, but I wouldn't trust them. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So
because they're linking into this topic. Sorry to interrupt, but they're linking into the whole soul trap thing, which is interesting. It's like, oh, like what are they, like just this magical anomaly, and they just happen to be looking into the soul trap, and then, oh my God, they have answers too. Oh my God, what are the chances? Not only are they looking at the soul trap, but they have experiences that they know for sure that are outside of the entire matrix system, and they know. I mean, what are the chances? It's like there's so many. But yet, you look at all the other experiencers, over thousands upon thousands upon thousands, and you don't hear any of that. It's all very, very familiar, cut and dry. Yeah, some deviation here and there, but it's all very cut and dry, like when you're looking at the patterns. So anyways, be careful. There's a few of those clowns out there.
Yes. So... we're trapped in this thing where we are so limited because of our human brain that it's very difficult. We don't have any memory of an experience prior to being human. It's just no one, even in past life regressions, I'm not aware of anybody that was able to tell you what they were doing before they were human. I kind of
exactly.
There's some...
Well,
there are some data points, like in Monroe's book. He was.
Are you saying before the first time they were human? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, before the first time.
Okay, first time. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I just had to clarify.
It's like such a profound memory wiping system, and every time it's repeated over and over again, you kind of get sucked into this system, and it's very abusive. And we do have some data. I mean, if you look at Robert Monroe's books, clearly he was interacting with conscious beings that were never human, and they couldn't understand. He would try to explain it to them through like data bundles that he would kind of like think about everything that it meant to be human and then send it to them, because all communication in the astral is probably very telepathic, and it's not really words, it's more information. And they thought it was weird or confusing or, kind of like strange. Also, Monroe's own experience that he went back home at one point, but it was a very boring place. I'm not sure. I've often thought about how this whole thing, like everything began. So yeah, there's this whole concept of eternity, which means it's outside of normal time. It kind of is, it always was and always will be. And then if we're eternal beings, it's some kind of quantum state of consciousness that we are. There's a book on my website in the book list. I think it's called biocentrism. It's a theory that we have everything backward when it comes to the origins of reality, or let me see if I can find it. It's in the book section. It's definitely worth a read to anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff. It's a theory by a biologist that we have everything reversed, that matter only exists in this universe because of consciousness. Consciousness is first and was first. Now, he doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of like a Big Bang theory in his book, but in my thought is that there was never a Big Bang of matter. There was a sort of like a explosion of consciousness somehow. And that from that explosion of consciousness, there's all this individualized conscious beings, that's us, and everything else that has consciousness. And that when you're existing as like a new, as a pre-human consciousness, you don't have any experience. In other words, in human form, we're biologically driven to survive. But if you're in just consciousness form, then you're not physical and you can't be killed or hurt, then what would be the driving force? I think it's the driving force is to become bigger, like consciously bigger, like
And
not
to just
size-wise.
experience.
Yes, you want knowledge, experience. You want to know things, right? It's a maybe a drive to become a more powerful consciousness, and I think the Earth is set up like this reincarnation soul trap for whatever Lush is or whatever we're here, because I mean it's not just Monroe's account. You know, you have Carlos Castaneda,
Yeah.
his books about this being like a human arrow, he called it. It's like a chicken coop. You know, the quote is actually on the bottom of my homepage. So the book is Biocentrism: How Life and Consciousness Are the Keys to the True Nature of the Universe. It was written by a biologist, Robert Lanza, and Bob Berman. So if anybody's interested, it is in the list of books on my website for people that if they want to check it out.
Great.
But the thing is that, you know, we get sucked into, I think, a naiveness. We have no experience. And then someplace like Earth pops up. And even if you do have experience in some things, you've never experienced anything like this roller coaster. So you get drawn to it. And I think there's all kinds of symbolism here to show you how that works. I think the bug zapper is
Yes.
is always been fascinating to me, right? It attracts those bugs to that light and zaps them, and they keep coming back for more, even though it never ends, right? You can have that thing
And then you have the
zapping.
anglerfish.
Right.
I mean, the
The
anglerfish literally it's a predator that has a light over its head to trap its prey.
Right. And then,
I mean,
and
Christ.
then they tell you go into the light.
Yeah.
Why would I do that automatically? I don't think so.
It's just, I think we just get wrapped up in the sensory experience. I don't know. We've talked before, like how like so many comments I've gotten, and I'm sure you've gotten them too, that like, oh, I'd never choose this and blah, blah. Yeah, you'd never choose it. Yes, we get it. But you probably were interested in the beginning and chose to come into it not knowing the ramifications of what could unfold because you've never had that experience before. If you can't gauge what it's like to be in a human meat suit, if you can't gauge that, you know, life and death are a thing, and it's I think it makes sense just from like how I'm just interested in things. I'm interested in learning and exploring and stuff like that. I think it makes sense for me at least that I would come here because I, you know, as a eternal true essence being, I can experience something like not knowing that, not remembering that, and actually dying, you know, and going through this whole phase. There, like from an outside perspective, I can see how it can be appealing to a true essence being who's perhaps roamed the multiverse and done all sorts of different things and came down and experienced something drastically different where they forget that they're an eternal being and that, you know, they don't die. But the problem is that there is a whole trap mechanism embedded with it. So that's the difference.
Yes, I do think that there must be some kind of natural, universal, or multiversal laws at work. I'm not sure where they originate from or how exactly it works, but they seem to have to like show you symbolically things like I said, like the bug zapper or the anglerfish. They kind of show you how the mechanism works. If you're too dumb or you don't and not interested in paying attention, that's on you. But they've shown you. I mean, it's kind of like everywhere. I mean, if you look at all the, yeah, it's everywhere. So I'm not sure if there's some kind of laws or rules that need to be followed. They also seem to have a thing where this environment is big risk, big pain. So it must have some kind of big reward if you get yourself out of here.
Liberation.
Liberation, but your consciousness that you'll never be fooled again.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. It's like there's for as much as like you don't want to say like, oh, it's a learning experience. In that respect, it is, because these are experiences that you'll take and realize and have in the back of your head that if you want to go and have some sort of experience in another realm, if the contract, so to say, the terms of service involve giving even 0.0001% of your essence in exchange for the experience, well, then you're going to have that knowledge. Hey, I went through a shit show of an experience on Earth, and I'm not giving any of my essence in exchange for any experience moving forward. So talk about valuable information to take with us, for eternity. I mean, it's screwed up. It had to come in this form, but it is valuable.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I just have a sense that there has to be an out, and there has to be something that if for those that get out, some kind of thing that makes it valuable to you when you finally get out. It's like it's kind of like I mean, you could say prison is a learning experience, right? I mean, if some people go to prison and they come out with all kinds of skills that they didn't have, survival skills they never had before, a completely different understanding of violence. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but if you look at Earth is like this really chaotic, predatory, parasitic realm, and you get yourself out of here. It's because you've freed yourself from the abuse of this system, and now you're going to be a much more powerful conscious being. So if that may be the only positive thing out of this whole mess. I don't see anything else that's positive about it. But that is, and I really don't know where Campbell comes up with some of this stuff. It's like Zachariah Sitchin, it's like these, and they write books and they go on talks and they give interviews. If somebody like me sits and listens to them in Marvel, and like, where are they coming up with this stuff?
Exactly.
They're talking with such authority, like they are idiots that think they're geniuses.
Yes.
Anyway, all right.
It's crazy. All right, so I think we only have very little left in this one, but we got some more.
Is what Linda started with, plus what Linda
Grew
added to
into.
it. That's
Linda
what's
was
at the
something before
that's
Linda
what the core did.
Linda was something before Linda happened. So
Yeah.
what Linda is whatever that was, and then
Right. What she
whatever
added
that
to
was
it.
was whatever that
Right.
was.
Yep.
So
All right, so let's move to the next one. And this is where okay. So now we're going to get into Tom discussing, wrong one. Tom discussing NDEs.
A near death, let's just jump to a near death and then we'll talk about the data, because now you're touching on this database that I was talking about, and I can explain why there is a database, why there has to be a database, and what that means to be able to access it. That's where Uncle Fred was. The guy came to greet you. He was basically a projection out of that database. Because everything we do, think, thought about doing but didn't, doesn't matter, every feeling, all of that is part of a database. And there's a reason why the system has to collect that data, and I'll get into that
Yeah. The reason is to deceive you.
later. But an NDE
Well,
is basically
hold on a
somebody
second.
who is...
Sorry, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
So essentially, he's describing, he, oh God, he's basically saying this is a big data mining operation.
Yeah.
And what is data mining used for? It's used to make you the product.
It's a minute. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that. If it's free to you, then you are the product.
Yep.
So yeah, well, and this may be the only time he's actually hit on something where he's right about something. Without even knowing it. What he's describing is a parasitic system that uses your information as a giant manipulation tool.
Yeah, and he's saying Uncle Fred, is just part of, that information, which, I think is that's where I line. I think it's all bullshit. I don't think most, not all, but I think most people are not dealing with who they think they're dealing with in an NDE. That's just my opinion. You there, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I thought you were going to play more video.
Right,
yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
And there's a reason why the system has to collect that data, and I'll get into that later. But an NDE is basically somebody who is, they say, a near-death experience, but the body maybe dies for a little bit and then gets resuscitated. So when I say dies, I mean it goes past the point of where life could be supported at that state that the physical things in couldn't support life, but it doesn't mean that that state can't be changed to where it can support life again. So people get in this spot where they're dead for a little bit, or if nothing else happened to bring them back, they would be dead. But something else happens and raises their potential for life back up positive again, and now they come back. So they are out there. Remember I said when you die, you kind of come awake and you say, oh, where am I? What's going on here? Well, they end up in that state, in the, where am I and what's going on here? And the way the system works is they start into the transition. So they get something positive. Maybe they see a light. And, the reason, so it's like, well, the light says, so come on, come here. We've been waiting for you. You can have a good time here. You're really going to like it. It starts positive. And most of the NDEs are positive. That's typically the way they are. They'll see dead relatives. They'll have an experience with the bright light that is nothing but love, and they'll get consumed and connected to this. Well, all that is them experiencing the larger consciousness system, them experiencing consciousness at its best, at a low entropy consciousness. And when they do that, of course, that's a life-changing experience. When you do that, you lose all the sense of I, who you are, and you become one with everything. And it's such a I don't know what to say, profound experience that it changes people. They see this light, they become part of it, and then they're one with all. And there's nothing but love. They're just experiencing the system and how the system sees things. And that's given to them just to show them kind of the heart or the core of what consciousness is all about. And then they pat them on the butt and send them back into the game. It says, you're not gonna die. Go back there.
Yeah, but there is a segment that don't want to come back. And I think that a large majority that do end up coming back would have preferred to stay, but perhaps they didn't verbalize that when they're sharing their experience. And how there are these loved ones most of the time, or situations that appear to manipulate them into coming back. I mean, one of the biggest things out there is that, I didn't want to come back. And there are all sorts of examples of whether someone's, Christ, I've seen crazy examples of, a mother who just gave birth, like, she has complications giving birth. Oh, my husband's down there. He'll take care of the baby. No problem. Like, it's like they're just so overly consumed and concentrated on the euphoric love bomb rush that's occurring, and that they are obviously free of their meat suit, that, like, the care and thought for what's going on down here doesn't exist nearly as much. And that's not to say that they don't care about their loved ones. It's just that they are in a situational moment where they're being manipulated by a love bomb. I mean, it's a literal drug dealer. My opinion, of course.
Yes, and there's a lot to unpack in this short clip. First thing is the whole, what I think is garbage, is this, I'm one with everything else.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, there's no way that I am one with Tom Campbell, okay? Okay? I mean, let's follow this stuff to its logical conclusion. I'm one with everything else. I'm not one with serial killers. I'm not one with rapists and murderers and all these other bad, really, really bad beings out there. I'm not one with any of them. Again, he just spouts this stuff out. It doesn't. My theory is that we can network into everything. When a computer can network into a network, and it becomes connected to all the other computers, but it never loses its own identity. If it becomes unplugged, it's still there. And I think that's how consciousness works. I think it works as an individualized unit of consciousness. You are a being in your own right, you're your own kind of universe, contained all in yourself. And then, of course, when you're out of body, you have all these other powers awaken, like telepathy, and you're in a non-linear time state. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. You have a memory wipe, so you don't remember a lot of stuff. So it's easy to manipulate you in that state because you're still holding onto your old human avatar identity. I don't see the love bomb to me is like a drug. It's like it's like something that washes over you to make you compliant, to make you basically want to give in to whatever is trying to influence you. I mean, I'm just looking at it. That's the way I see it.
I'm with you.
He just, a lot of stuff that Campbell says, he just says, as a matter of fact, based on what data? Who's patting me on the back, Tom?
Yeah.
Pat
you on the back and send you back. Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah.
Who is doing that?
He just skips over that.
Yeah. Why would... Now, most people have been programmed here. Their consciousness is so embedded with this concept of an authority that the moment, I mean, there's all kinds of experiments. I think in the 50s, I forget the name of some of these experiments, but there's a classic one where they simply had a person dressed in normal clothes giving, I think, directions to people. And some people just wouldn't listen because he was just dressed like, he was a nobody. Then they put him in a milk delivery uniform or something like that. It has the same kind of concept as a cop uniform. You have your hat with your, like that uniform hat. It's a uniform. And they had people getting instructions from this person. They would just listen. They were so programmed with obedience and authority that they would just obey.
Yeah.
They wouldn't question it. So Imagine that baggage, that psychological luggage, coming with you into the afterlife, and then
Oh.
whatever's patting people on the back is
Good game. Good game.
like, yeah, yeah, get back in there. I'm telling you because you're supposed to listen to me. I don't perceive. I purged myself of that nasty programming. There is no such thing as authority. There's coercion, force, violence, but there's no authority.
Yep.
So once you get that out of your head, and then in the afterlife, where you're kind of like on more even footing, where there is no force, I think that can, once you're out of body, the options to be used against you are, I think, much more limited, if maybe not even existent at all. Because
they are. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just think that your intention, your imagination, even in Monroe's book, I think he was being bothered by these little imp creatures at one point, and while he was out of body, he just imagined him projecting like electrical sparks or something, and these things just got zapped, and then they went away. That's somewhere in one of his books, if I remember right. I'm paraphrasing.
Intention does it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've actually experienced it where you can will things out of existence, and your intention is clear. It's instantaneous. Like if you want to be out of a situation, you can do it. Now, if you're under the influence and doing things like that, it's not as easy because there's still some. It's just not as easy. You're not as clear-headed, or you're not as lucid, I guess you should say.
Yeah, I mean, I had the most, as everybody knows, most people I'm sure listening know out there, my little Orange Grove experience during my surgery. I was clearly left alone. Nobody, I think that was my intention, was to be left alone, but there was nothing influencing me in that near death or out of body state, whatever it was that I was experiencing. There was nothing there to influence me. I was basically just thinking to myself. So that's
great.
That's probably progress. I made progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, you weren't being messed with. That's number one. I want to thank David Rollman for the very kind super chat as well. Says, Dan and Mark, two of the best people talking on this topic. To anyone on the fence about the subject matter, these are the go-to guys, all data-driven. You must understand the patterns. Thanks, David. That's very kind of you, my friend. Thank you. Also want to thank Alice for renewing your membership. Appreciate you. Okay, so let's move on.
On my channel, somebody just wrote, Tom appears very robotic. He does appear very robotic. Sometimes I wonder if we should call one of those Japanese corporations and find out they lost one of their robots.
It's God, it would be you know what I mean, I think we kind of really dug into this maybe the beginning of 2023, probably actually about a year ago, where we went over him talking about some of his interactions with Monroe and Lush and all that stuff. And to this day, it really irks me that, he said this, not me, not Dan, not anybody else. He's got loads of tapes of his conversations with Bob, including during the time period of when they were talking about Lush. And to date, none of those have been released. Or none of the conversations, as far as I'm aware. Now, perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe something's changed in the last year, or maybe I didn't see any of that stuff out there. But to my knowledge, he has not released any of those taped conversations with Monroe. So
that's very interesting.
It is. It is. That's what he says. I'm not making it up. He says it. So where are the tapes, Tom? Where are the tapes?
Yeah, now granted, if the whole thing were to catch on in mass, I think the entire Earth system would have to be reset.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say this. Let's say the belief in a reincarnation soul trap, and you have to dump the concept of authority, and you have to exert your own personal, individual sovereignty and authority to get out of here. Becomes as popular as like maybe like the Catholic religion. Well, if that were the case, then the entire system would have to be reset. It would have to be wiped out completely and reset because they would lose complete control of their crops.
Yeah, it would
It's
be
okay. It's okay if there's only like 13,000 on my channel, 14 or 15 on your channel. That's okay.
doesn't do anything.
In the grand scheme of things, they can lose those numbers.
Yeah.
That's just like bean counting, right?
Well, and then you factor in how many actually kind of are okay with standing in their sovereignty. You probably cut that number in half.
Sure, but it's the same thing as corporations do, right? If this product has a defect, and then the accountants go to work and they say, well, we need to recall this because it'll cost us more money if we don't, or they can say, we just don't recall it because it's not going to affect us that badly. So it's like that, right? So the system here, the Loosh farm, can look at our awakening or coming to terms with reality based on the totality of the evidence and not because we're told about some religious or materialist nonsense. I mean, the materialists are just as bad as the religious, but we're basing it on the totality of the data and the evidence, and we're processing things without cognitive dissonance. And they can take a look at how many people are actually doing that, which is a very tiny fraction of the population. And they're like, sure, we can lose these amount of conscious beings. This doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect our Loosh production or whatever it is that they're after.
Yeah, I'm sure they have numbers, right? They're going to meet their quotas, and if those quotas get threatened, like with a mass turnover rate, then they just reset the damn place.
I mean, the system is. I think this is the second time. I'm kind of scared here, but it's the second time I have to say he was correct about something. The system does have data on everybody. It is a gigantic data mining operation that has every minute detail of everyone's life, thoughts, emotions, actions, everything. So, of course, it's completely aware. The system is completely aware of how many people it's going to lose when the lifespan of those people end, that are not going to be put into some kind of astral holding pattern in some kind of hollow heaven or some other astral environment until they, the system. I mean, who knows? Maybe they collect Loosh in the astral also. I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We're like very handicapped by the human body. So we're the fact that some of us were able to figure this out at all is amazing.
Yeah, and I think something else that's important about it is to direct people to where that information is, to let everyone know that the reason why we are aware that every single second of every single day is recorded is because there's a life review. The life review point blank shows it in spades. Like so that's where you can guarantee that this type of thing is happening. So there is actual data and information behind it. Dan's not just saying it for the hell of it. The life review proves point blank that every single moment of every single day is recorded from cradle to grave for every single one of us. And that information is tucked away and saved and then used against us at the light to keep us coming back here. All right. So it's an unfair advantage right out the gate. They have a certain set of information which is like all encompassing about you, me, and everybody in the lamppost, and we're just supposed to blindly trust the entity, the being, the system that is using that information and telling us that we need to spiritually evolve when it is responsible for what is happening here. How much sense does that make? Again, it's just common sense. It's logic. There's no explaining this away.
Right. As a matter of fact, you need to develop, because if a life review is used against you, it is so easy to turn that around on them. Okay? Because you need to have sort of like become sort of like your own lawyer, and you need to become or have it in the back of your head that when you get out of here, you're going to have that personality trait of, I'm sure people know somebody in their lives like this. There's always a person in your life that no matter what, you cannot win an argument. If you know somebody like that in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has that person in their life. You can't win no matter what you do. There is no winning the argument, right? And when this life review crap is thrown on top of you, it's so easy to become that kind of person, because no matter what, everything that is going on there, well, I wouldn't have done it if I had been able to keep my memories. I wouldn't have done that if I had this piece of information.
Yeah.
How am if you put me in this world where I'm programmed till 7. Well, I only had that personality trait because I was in an environment that gave it to me.
And you have to learn your way out of it. Like through years of struggle and inner turmoil to go back and fight against that programming that was, beat into you, through teachings or whatever, or dogma. And you have to get yourself out of that. And that's a whole process in itself. And your channel shows that process.
Yeah, I mean,
or it did show that process.
Yeah, you're born with an imprint from the astrological, first of all. This gives your human self some base trademarks. These can some of these are depending on what time and day and what location of birth. If you look at your Vedic astrology, not Western astrology, Vedic Hindu astrology is much more accurate. And you look at the personality traits, you'll find that what you probably already know about yourself. And then some people can be born with really horrible traits, just a crapshoot. I happen to be born, and it's very interesting. I was born kind of early, so sometimes in the certain books, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it tells you that if you have to go through rebirth, then you have to choose wisely so that next time you can get out. And even in Monroe's book, I think he said he went to that outer rim place where people that were there were contemplating their last life around. They were picking the right person to be so they could get out, which may be a thing. It may be a possible thing. But you're born with these personality traits that are embedded into you at birth. Some of them are bad. Mine happen to be keen on investigation. When I had my Vedic chart done, as I mentioned before, the Vedic person didn't know anything about me. The first words out of their mouth is, "You would do great as an investigator in some kind of capacity. You are born to be an investigator." Now, that's amazing, but there's other people born with traits that make them stubborn, that make them closed-minded. How are they supposed to get out of the system? Wait until the next time when they happen to be born in the right way, or hopefully learn how to overcome those traits, because you can hack them. You can overcome these traits if you get aware of them, just like cognitive dissonance.
You have to be aware. Yeah.
Right. And then from birth to 7 years old, you're this receptive subconscious sponge. All the trash that, school or friends or parents, if whatever they're putting into you, it's going to sabotage you the rest of your life. And then after that, you're whatever environment you happen to be in, whatever religion you happen to be born into. I mean, just think of everything working against you. And then they're going to give you a life review and tell you how this is all your fault. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. With me, there's not going to be any life review.
That's right. Simply not allowed.
It's
Not
just
allowed.
who's going to want to deal with me? What entity? When 99% of the humans, 99.9% of the humans that pass on here, go into the astral, are going to be compliant as hell.
Exactly. Why are they going to have someone like you or I or anyone in this chat roaming around, figuring this shit out again and exposing it?
Yeah, they're not gonna,
Even if it's on the
Well, I mean,
smallest scale possible.
right. It's like, he could just leave. That's what I expect to happen. He could just go. We don't need to do anything with him.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And tell people about this. So then it helps open other people's minds. Other people say, oh, wow, that was amazing. There must be something on that other side that does that, because there's literally tens of thousands of these NDEs, and there's a lot of consistency, in the
That's
stories
right.
they tell. So if they were all just making it up on their own, there wouldn't be that consistency. So it kind of lends some credibility to the fact that there is something else, that this is not just a materialist reality that's a machine and everything that happens is, random basically, or determined. And, that's kind of a deadening concept, not an opening up and enlivening concept, well, you're nothing, you don't count for anything, there is no purpose in your life, so grab everything you can grab, have a good time, and that's what it's all about. Well, when you go on that path where you're grabbing everything and just having a good time, you end up miserable, because you're being very self-centered. You're not learning, you're not growing, and that life becomes empty. And
Again, I bring up the point, like I know you have too, Dan. What about the poor children, or adults, doesn't matter, any individual who's growing up in the slums of India or in North Korea or under any sort of crazy regime, where they can barely get food every day. What about them? What are they learning, Tom?
Yep. It's not just that. He knows that there's consistent data. Yeah, he doesn't follow the consistent data. He contradicts the
Yep.
consistent data all the time. Last time we did part 1 of this on your channel, I was pointing that out. I think every time he opened his mouth, that doesn't match the data set
Yeah.
that we have from near-death experiences. I mean, it is consistent. So then be consistent in your
Yeah.
explanation for it. Don't
And
contradict
tell
the data.
people.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah. So what are we learning? Again, go back to amnesia again. What can I learn? And you're right. What if you're born in some horrific circumstances? Now I believe certain ancient books that talk about reincarnation do point this out. That if you don't choose your reincarnation wisely, it is sort of like a roulette wheel. It's like we just toss you in where we need you, and that could be in a really horrible place. You could end up in a really nice place. It's wherever you land. And then if you are one of these, well, I don't want that life. If you're caught in the reincarnation cycle and you're still in it, then you think you have to reincarnate here. And then you if you're like maybe a level above, like, because we know from the books from like Robert Monroe's books that there's beings that just want to rush in here, right? They get very excited about the excitement of Earth life, human life, and they just like, yeah, we'll take whatever. Where do I sign? After they get here and they starve to death a few times or get killed in some, war, then maybe they start to wise up and pick better lives. But then they become stuck here over and over again.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Because you're being very self-centered. You're not learning, you're not growing, and that life becomes empty and eventually unpleasant, and you become depressed, and that's not what it's all about. So materialism kind of pushes people in the wrong direction. Greed is a good thing. I'm grabbing everything I can grab because it doesn't matter anyway. It's survival of the fittest, and I got more money than you, I must be more fit than you. Well, that's nonsense. That's not the way it works at all. But that's kind of where a materialist viewpoint gets you. So the system would like to sow some seeds of, it's not like that. Reality's bigger and more significant and more important and more beautiful than just a random machine where you can do whatever you want because it doesn't matter anyway, because there is no purpose, you see. So it goes out of its...
It's always easy for someone to sit in the back seat and say that, life is beautiful and this and that, but we can revert back to what we were just talking about. Being born in the slums of India or Africa and having to, hike, 3 miles to get some water at the well and then bring it back to your family, or growing up in North Korea or wherever, right? Being a child and being thrown into like a slave factory. There's so many examples, and I find like the Western mindset to be honest and analyze these things absolutely atrocious. And exactly what Tom is saying here, in my opinion, falls under that category.
You mean because the Western culture has pretty much rejected the reincarnation?
No. It's just like, okay, look, everything isn't, rainbows, pixie dust, and unicorns in the West, but excuse me, the majority have access to air conditioning and heating and electricity and running water and food. It's not the case with every single being, but the majority of the population has it better off than the struggles that can be seen in the East. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree.
So it's I feel there's a big disconnection there.
Yeah, there is a big disconnection. There's a big disconnection with people generally everywhere because even if you're walking around the grocery store, you'll have somebody annoy you, and you don't know what they're going through. We're totally cut off from telepathy, so our empathy is limited to what we can see, and some people do have psychic awareness that is far beyond normal, but most people wander around and all they can perceive is the five senses, if that, and then they don't know what other people are dealing with. There's no way to know, so all you see is like the surface. It's so
true. KSP says the poorest in the U.S. are not very far from the Indian slums. And he says, what I've seen from Philadelphia. Yeah, dude, my friend, I can totally relate. It's, I've seen some of it, and, I'm not saying all by any means. I'm just saying per capita, like, numbers wise. It's, I don't care where you live. It's not perfect. Like, I'm just saying in general, it's a little better, or in some cases, much better than in the East. And I think where I come at a crossroads with someone like Tom and many of these others who say, oh, well, it's a learning experience, like blah, 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 blah. Well, it's like you can't rationalize someone suffering endlessly and in having issues in Philadelphia or someone in India or North Korea or wherever, right? Like you're not living that experience. You can see some of that experience and have great compassion and empathy for them. But when you have individuals on the internet kind of peddling it off as like, oh, it's just a learning experience, everything's fine. Well, someone like Tom or even me or Dan or probably a majority of us listening today, we have modern day conveniences, but those modern day conveniences are big. They're things like, air conditioning and heating and water and, and a bathroom and the basics, the very basics. Maybe a dishwasher. Well, it doesn't even matter. You don't even need a dishwasher. You have just just a sink with running water to, scrub your dishes. It's sad. Like, it really irks me. I always feel like there's a disconnect to not look at like a large portion of society who are completely in the pits and being railroaded. And we can even go a step further and talk about all these clowns out there stole the land everywhere, right? And they're selling that land. I think, and this is in my intro video, to the channel. Like, if you're new and you just came here, maybe you haven't seen it, or maybe some of you have. I talk about how, if there's birds in a tree and they've already kind of put a nest in that tree. Well, if some bird comes around from the outside, either they're going to build a nest off of another branch, or more than likely, they're going to find another tree or bush or something to put their nest in to have their babies, right? To have their family. But in pretty much everywhere in the world, you've got to pay exorbitant sums in order to retain a home or retain even land to put seeds down, to feed yourself, to feed your family. It's there's so many different levels to how messed up things are. And,
Sure.
Who owns the land, right? What gave some asshole banker or some asshole government or individual to come in or company to come in and just sideswipe and take all the land over the entire earth, right? Who is allowed to do that? And yet it happens. You're born here. We're all born here. And you have to work your ass off to own a land. And guess what? You still got to pay property taxes. You still got to pay this and that and this and that. So you can never truly even be free once you're here, because you still have to pay up for these different types of services from land that was stolen from somebody else. I mean, we can go on and on and on about this.
Yeah, sure. It all comes down again to this programming that humans have about authority, which doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. It does not exist. Nature is very comfortable with the fact that there is no such thing as authority. There's only force and violence. We just simply have some way of using cognitive dissonance some way of hiding the fact that what we perceive as an authority is actually just somebody that's able to force their will on you. It's not, there is no difference between what some people would identify as organized crime and the government. As far as I'm concerned, they're both the same
Agreed.
thing. They behave in exactly the same way. They just change the names of the things they do. And nobody owns land in America, probably nowhere in the world. But the fact is that you could pay off your house, your mortgage can be completely paid off, and you have to pay what's called property taxes. Now,
Yeah.
basically, this is money that you're forced to pay. If you don't think
Extortion.
you're forced, if you don't think you're forced to pay it, try not paying it. See what happens. Eventually, you won't be in your house anymore. And why is that? You can't resist, because if you resist, the escalation of force used against you will rise proportionately, and it'll always be one step higher than what you're able to do. So,
Yeah, they'll
that's
take your
the
home.
truth.
They'll take your property.
They'll take it, right? So, it's this whatever made the human form made us as it is kind of like a slave race design, and it was there to be used by the makers, I guess, originally, and then I don't know, maybe they just abandoned us or were done with us and they left us to our own devices, and we're programmed to follow this concept of authority, so we just created our own fictitious authority to follow. I mean, how does that sound to you, Mark?
Yeah,
I think I'm on something here.
yeah, it's just a joke. The whole thing is just
And there's no,
yeah.
there's no fixing it. That's why it's like, no, there's no fixing it. We are designed this way. There is no fixing it.
No.
That's why it's imperative to get yourself, spiritually enlightened enough so that when you pass on, you don't get thrown back into this meat grinder, for lack of a better word.
Sure. It's crazy. Totally crazy. Okay. So, you know what? Let's take a break. We've been going for quite a while. How you doing on energy over there? You all right?
I am doing better than I have in a long time.
Okay. So you want to keep going, or you?
Yeah, we can keep going if you want.
right.
Sure.
All right. So let's take a break, and we'll be back here in about maybe 5 to 7 minutes or something, and we'll see you then, my friends. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Great to have
See
you
you
with
soon.
us. We'll be right
Yeah,
back.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Alrighty. 10 seconds, Stan.
I'm back.
Sounds good. 5 seconds. All right. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the law would prefer. It's always important to do your own research and come up with your own conclusions. Want to give a big thank you to Spirit for the kind super chat. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And just to let everyone know, we are streaming on Odyssey, YouTube, and Rumble. And multi-streaming over to Dan's channel as well on Overwatch channel on YouTube. And you can find my channel also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where I just send out notifications only about when we're streaming. And there are also memberships available on Odyssey and YouTube. And we usually meet the last Sunday of every month, and that'll be on this month. It'll be February 25th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. So if you're interested in getting a little extra content each month, feel free to check out the description tab for that, and I'll also post it in the chat for you if you're interested. And then if you're looking to find out where Dan is, check out the description. He's got a website, overwatchproject.com. And again, he goes by Overwatch channel on YouTube and Overwatch Project on Odyssey. So, but you can find links to all those in the description tab. And want to welcome Dan back. Thank you, brother. All right. So let's move along, right?
Yes.
All right.
Doesn't matter anyway, because there is no purpose. You see? So it goes out of its way to give people positive experiences and then send them back with a story to tell. And it does. These people write books, and a lot of people get this and they think, well,
Like
there must
him.
be something else going on, because that guy was dead for 5 minutes and then they resuscitated his body, and he has this big story to tell. So he's kind of been there and seen it and come back to tell us about it. So it's part of the way that the larger conscious system tries to help us grow and become love and understand there's a bigger picture. So that's what's going on. Now, some people who are extremely fearful, the same ones that would take longer, they may take a while when they get to that transition reality to calm them down, because they know bad little girls and little boys, and they're going straight to hell, and it's going to be horrible, and they believe that. So they come in almost in a panic. Now they've died. They got run over by a truck, didn't even have a priest or somebody, absolve them of all their sins before they died. And so you have some of those. They will have negative experiences because that's what they expect. So the experiences they're having are basically like dreams. It's things that they're making up that reflect their beliefs. And it just takes a while for them to get out of that and realize that, no, it's really not that way. That's just you kind of going out and living all the things you've been told and the beliefs and so on. So
It blows my mind, Dan, that we can hear this, and Tom, everything is like, oh, it's all you. It's all you. There isn't some mechanism, there isn't a clear mechanism in place that is facilitating this line of perception or this line of thinking, or like there's this love bomb, but it's all you. Like, no, there is clearly like a mechanism at play that is facilitating all this. And yes, it has a lot to do with what we've done, what we've experienced, our the good points, the bad points, and everything in between. But something clearly has an agenda, or clearly has a program, emitting itself onto us. And if you're listening to what Tom is saying, he's saying, oh, well, it's all you. It's all you.
Yes. Well, he also is contradicting himself there again. Just want to point that out. I'm quite clear in my position. I'm not one with everybody. So if it's me, how could it be me, Tom, if I'm one with everything else? First of all. Second of all, True Detective has a comment I just noticed. It's probably, first she wrote, it's probably not unintentional that Tom sports the architect look. I think that's a reference to the Matrix.
Yeah.
Entropy increases, though, right, Tom? It also doesn't make sense that there is any improvement or evolution when you're actually piling on more experiences and more entropy. So, but back to what he was saying there. He just how could I? There's an I, but I thought, no, I'm just actually one with everything else. Isn't that what he was saying before?
Yes. He contradicts himself over and over with that.
Right. I say there is an I, and I am self-contained, and I can network with other things. And sure, you can feel like you're almost one with something else when you're doing that, or you can feel like you're one with something else, but you're not. You're just interfacing with it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's that you really nailed it right there. Interfacing with something else. That doesn't mean that it's, yeah, anyways, yeah, that's really well said.
So a few people have that, but most people don't. Most people aren't that invested, in there. Most people who are religious go because it's a social thing. It's where their friends are. They meet. They have dinners, potluck dinners together. They go bowling.
You can say it's social, but a lot of it's ingrained into their heads from a young age. So no, it's not just social. It's brainwashing, Tom.
Yeah, it's again goes back to this concept that we have to obey authority, and you know,
Yeah, I mean, Christ, I remember this didn't last long, but I remember early in my youth, very early, being, scared shitless of the priest, right? It's like, oh shit, this guy talks to God. He's got a, direct freaking bat phone to God. It's like, oh man, he's better than me. I better listen to him. That didn't last long. But the point is it instills a certain belief or fear or respect that these clowns don't frankly deserve.
yeah.
Go skating. They do things. It's a social club. And, they have to listen
Dan.
to the preacher preach, but they only half pay attention because they're thinking about what they're going to do afterwards and so on. So most people claim to be a member of a religious faith, but the great majority don't take it that seriously, but some do. And the ones that do, if they haven't been very wonderful people, they start to feel very fearful when they die. So that's really what the NDEs are about. It's an experience that people have, and they have different experiences because the system doesn't just give everybody the same experience. It would sound like, they got that experience because they read the book of what somebody else did. It's all just.
Yeah, Tom, but there are a lot of patterns, Tom. So, they don't get the same exact experience because everyone's lived a different life, but it's the same type of mechanics, Tom. So I think he's being disingenuous here, quite frankly, Dan.
I don't know what science school he went to, but my high school science class was more disciplined in this.
I know where he went, Dan. Yeah, he went to CIA Academy.
Ah, yes, of course.
Maybe I said too much.
Ooh, maybe.
All just copycat. It's just, that's a part of the culture. They're making all up the same things. So there's a lot of varied experiences, individual experiences that people have. But, you can have that experience almost anytime you want. All you have to do is go get a good meditation state, get consciousness, and have an intention to connect with the larger system. And there it is. You've got it. You can have that experience. You can be absorbed into the light and be one with everything and feel that love and feel your connection to everything else. That's not an experience you have to die or almost die to get. It's available.
And he's right. He's right. Like this is something that exists. There is training or books you can read to achieve that. The problem is looking up to it is like the end all be all. Like it's like everything makes sense. Like this is the answer. That's where part of the problem comes in, Tom. It's yeah. I mean, Monroe. I've talked about it a few times. I think you and I even talked about it, Dan, where they sell a course where you can pay money to learn how to help other entities, beings that are stuck in between, go to the light. And just to kind of ease everybody's mind about that, it's like the beings that are left behind and not going to the light, they have hang-ups. They have attachments. I would gather that most of us here don't have those attachments. Like, you feel comfortable about who and what you are. You know that you're a true essence being that's eternal and going to take back control of your life. Well, there is a large, overwhelming percentage that don't feel that way. Like their life was either cut short, or perhaps they're trying to look after their family and they're still way too hooked in to their most recent incarnation. So they remain in the lower earth astral, or, as a ghost, or whatever the case may be, right? But they are not ready personally to move on from those hanging attachments that they had. And a lot of times it could be that, they died like unexpected death, or they died young, or had some sort of crazy health issue that hit them and they didn't expect it. And like, maybe their life was going good. Maybe they had a lot of land, a lot of money, or maybe they just love their family, right? I mean, there's so many different reasons as to why this can occur. But in that same breath, that has nothing to do with the majority of us who are looking into this, because attachments play a massive role with continuing the cycle of death and rebirth. Anything you want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, sure. Unlike Buddhist type philosophies that I think maybe originally were right on track, they still hold some of those concepts of not attachment, although I think it's been corrupted in modern times, like everything else. You have to get to that exit point, the outer rim, as Monroe would call it. There's a point where you can get out of the entire system, and the system here holds many different layers. It's not just the physical. It appears to be that there's an entire copy of the physical in the astral. Many copies, actually, where, people actually have jobs in the afterlife, right?
Yeah. Like literally, like, using hose, like in a farm, like, like in a field. Yeah. No, I mean, like, straight up, like crap you would not want to do here is somehow like conditioning individuals over there in an effort to keep them coming back here, or perhaps training them for their first human life, or whatever the case may be, right? The point is like, I call it the continuity of familiarity, because that's really what it seems to be. It's like you're able to recognize and be familiar with your surroundings, and everything makes sense because you just came from perhaps Earth or whatever other realm, and these things look familiar to you. And the system knows that, uses it against you, and gets you sucked in. And then, of course, you can throw the whole soul group thing into all that. But, I mean, we can go on and on and on for hours just about that alone, like how this is like clearly like a very well thought out plan. And anyways, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if, some people would be listening to us right now. They don't know what we're talking about, but there's plenty of data from near-death experience, out-of-body experiencers, that there's actual cities in the astral plane. There's places where people still like do earthly type things, but in a more etheric way. Is that a right way of saying it, Mark?
Sure. Yep.
But
it's like the surroundings are, very familiar. Like a field, like, like we were talking about, like someone has a hoe, and they're grazing the field or whatever, turning the soil or whatever, and like there's a bunch of them out there. Like, what the hell's up with that?
Right. There'll be a cafe. There's a barista in there.
Yeah.
You go in and you eat cake. Some people still think they have to go to the bathroom. Others in the same place will know they don't have to go to the bathroom anymore. Some of them will look remarkably young and attractive. Others will cling to some elderly appearance they had before they died. This is what goes on in these spirit planes. There's fake heavens, right, where a lot of religious people end up, and they think they're in the holy city or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, PKOSB says, no, I ain't working. After death, they can shove that crap up there. You know what? Exactly. It's like, who the hell would think that type of surrounding, or that type of, like, even like the soul class thing, like we've talked about that a bunch, like how the soul classes in past life regressions, life between lives, those types of things are like, there's like a blockade. Why is that information not
You mean the classrooms? You mean
the soul classes? Yeah, like there's a blockade on information, like, and it's openly admitted, like, like it's no big deal. It's like, well, what the hell's going on there? Like, you can get access to all this other type of information, and yeah, it may be pure, specifically geared towards the individual or something like that. But the point is I know Newton makes it very clear that that you can't really get information from there, and if you do, it's like very, very limited. So what the hell is going on there? It's like, why does a classroom setting even exist in the first place
in the
astral realm? Yeah,
yes,
in the afterlife. Why?
Yeah, and it also contradicts, again, like, this system is basically based on lies, as far as I can tell, and they're not even really good ones. The only real reason they get away with it is because people have the remarkable capability of ignoring lies that are right in front of their faces. Everybody's heard that's looked into this for even a short amount of time, that people in a near-death experience state, in the out-of-body state, when they ask themselves a question, the answer presents itself almost simultaneously, if not even simultaneously. It's like a quantum state of existence where you ask and you get answered. If that's as easy as information comes to you, what do you need a classroom for?
And why do you need to ask somebody else? Like, that's where, like, I have a big problem too. It's like, why do you need to ask somebody else? Like, if you're all knowing and all powerful, or whatever, let's just say all knowing, and you're having these profound realizations, why do you need to ask outside or exterior entities to you for those questions? Why should you even surround yourself with those beings and ask those questions? I find a big problem with that too.
Yeah, and like you said, why can't we know, when, like, Newton is asking, why can't we know what goes on in these classrooms?
It's incredible. It's incredible.
That right there should tell you something nefarious is going on.
Exactly.
What else do you need to know?
Exactly.
The all-loving, all-open afterlife, except you can't know what goes on over here, and you can't know what goes on over there, and you just have to listen to us.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
That's what the Buddhists and the Hindus talk about. Their nirvana. They're going to, they have this profound experience of love and positivity. That's what they're talking about. So it's not, you don't have to die to do that. All you have to do is learn to let go. Yeah, now that's their enlightenment. But that's not really enlightenment. That just means that they've learned to control their consciousness to the point that they can let go and become one with things. It's nice, but it's not the end of the road. What's really important is how kind and helpful are the other people. You can be.
I mean, can you believe this? Like, he's saying, oh, well, the thousands of years of, the Buddhists like talking about liberation and stuff like that, they're all wrong. Everything's about love. Everything's about how you treat others. I mean, I have such a big problem with this. It's not even funny. It's like anyone who thinks they can come here and conquer the world and get everyone to see your views is out of their fucking mind. Anyone who thinks that they can fix this is out of their mind. Anyone who thinks that they can fight this is out of their mind. It's like we each come here with our limited perception, and whether you're looking at something that the other is looking at, or perhaps maybe you have a distorted worldview, whether it's parasitic or you're in the trenches of depression. It doesn't matter. Like like you're not going to get through to someone unless they themselves are receptive. So the whole love thing, everything's about love, is just utterly insane.
Yes. And, when people say they want to fix this or fix that, that implies that something is broken.
Yeah,
But
it does.
But I went through that whole phase, and I came out thinking, well, I don't think it's broken. I think it's designed like this. It's working exactly as it was meant to work. So there's nothing to fix. The correct thing would be, I want to break this, not fix it. But people keep thinking they can fix something that is not broken.
Yeah, it's run exactly as you said. It's running as intended. This is the way it's supposed to be.
That, and we're not the makers of it.
We're in somebody else's creation.
Right. To give you a gaming example, one of the most popular games up until recently has been Call of Duty. It used to be massively powerful, and in the last few years, they have stopped listening to the fans and created a game that isn't as good as it should be. And they're the makers. The makers have this game. It has a lot of problems. There's a lot of YouTube channels that complain about it. They would like to see the game fixed. But none of them are responsible for making or fixing the game, so it cannot be fixed because it's designed to work as they made it, and they made it to be bad.
Yeah. Along with many other things in society.
You don't have any control over it. It's also like why I don't really watch the news anymore at all. If you think about what's going on, you're sitting in your house, you're looking at something, it's terrible, you get upset, you're producing loosh. Probably, right, from the emotions. And in reality, whatever they're showing you, there's a 99.9% chance that there's absolutely nothing you could do about it anyway. So why bother looking?
Yeah. No,
why bother looking?
It's really well said.
Be very self-centered and get that experience. It's not only the people who are almost near death that aren't self-centered. You can be very self-centered and still get to that experience and still have a long way to evolve. But that's some of the differences. That's religions create dogmas and beliefs, and then they kind of work toward those beliefs. So anyway, I think that answers your question. That's NDEs. Tom. Now what we're going to get to is the database. So the database has to be created.
All right, so I'm going to skip over this segment and head on over to OBEs and, OBEs.
Out-of-body experience is most accurately described as a single-player game that's been handed to you by the LCS. So your reality is a data stream, and that data stream can describe this virtual reality that we call the physical universe. But it doesn't have to. It can give you a data stream that describes something else. And that something else then becomes your reality. Okay. Now, that's the same thing we're talking about in the Mandela effect. You're just getting a different data stream. Now, so if you can use meditation, or you can maybe skip meditation and use your imagination. But if you get to the point that you let the physical world go, and what I mean by that, you ignore the data stream that's coming to you describing this physical universe. Okay, you just ignore it. So you don't process any of that data. Mostly people do that through meditation. They'll get into a meditation state and they will stop processing physical data. And when they do, remember that point consciousness, all you are is a piece of consciousness, aware that you're aware. That's it. Well, when you get to that point, the larger conscious system can, if you want, if you intend to, you can get another data stream where you are out, flying around. You're in places. You're going different kind of places. And you think, well, I'd rather go over there, see what that is. And you fly over there and you see what that is. And you run into people and you interact with them. And, so you have this big experience. It's just a single player game. You're now getting a data stream that's defining a different reality. That is not this virtual reality. It's some other virtual reality that's being played for you. And that's all an out-of-body is. That's basically what your lucid dream is. Except one of them, you never lose consciousness. You go from awake in this reality to awake in another reality. And the other one, you lose consciousness first and then wake up and you're in a different reality. You're not in the physical reality anymore. So it's just kind of different entry process for each one, but it both takes you to the same place. Now, the thing about data streams is that you get a data stream. Your reality isn't that data stream. Your reality is your interpretation of that data stream. You get the data, but you have to interpret it. Now, interpreting it has some problems. It depends on your level of fear, your level of knowledge, your intellect, your everything, your emotions, all that defines you will impact and color how you interpret it. And you have to interpret it into things, into metaphors that are physical for the most part, because that's how you think. That's what your language does. Our language is a language that describes things physical. Well, not always. We can describe feelings. We can describe other things. So you'll have feelings. But you have to put it into the same context as which you put your interpretation of this physical matter reality, that virtual reality, because that's where your language is. That's where your thoughts are. And without the language, you can't put your thoughts in any kind of an order to express them. If you can't express them, you can't express them to yourself either. Then they're just vague kind of feelings and things. And wow, that was really something, but I can't explain it. I don't have any words for it. Well, that's because you don't have any patterns already in your system to match it to. So you're lost there. But you match it to some pattern that you've already got. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, you match that to a pattern of a humanoid, because that's what you usually talk to. There's humanoid things. You don't talk to chickens. You don't talk to dogs. You don't talk to rocks. So you're having a conversation. You'll pattern that as a humanoid. And if you want to see who you're talking to, you'll see kind of a human shape. It'll have a head and arms and legs and probably be in a robe with a hood, so you don't have to conjure up all the detail unless you really want to. It just makes basically a projection. And so that's what you'll get. But you see, you'll see that as a person, and you're having this conversation.
So it'll probably have, a hood and all that stuff and a robe. As if it's like some authority figure over you. Like the robe thing is big, right? Like not seeing a face is a thing. Sometimes seeing red eyes, like glowing red eyes, which, I think is pretty creepy. Like that can be a thing. I can't nail down percentages for stuff like that, but it's like just the robe thing alone, Dan, projects authority.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, I can talk to my dogs and they understand me. He said you can't talk to dogs or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the robe thing, listen.
They get us.
I I I don't know what he's talking about here. He has this is a big word salad that just came out just to describe out of body experiences. I'm a little confused as to everything
Yeah.
he said, but the robe thing. Okay, so first of all, what's good for them is good for you. Again, once you shed your concept of authority in the afterlife, you have nothing to fear. First of all, second of all, you are not um, bound to your appearance, right? That is simple fact from all the data, right? People can change their appearance to be much younger than they were. You can make yourself a faceless hooded creature. Let's see how they like it. You can transform your appearance into anything you want to be when you're in the afterlife or the astral plane. You don't have to keep your current looks, right?
Nope. Nope. Yeah. I mean, like, I think where we see that, like, predominantly, or at least, like, on display of epic proportions, is in things like NDEs or breakthrough trip reports, where someone will see their deceased loved one, and perhaps their deceased loved one, at the end of their, physical life, maybe they were going through cancer, or they were old and just having a rough time and looked rough. Well, like, I would say look, let me be conservative. 95% of the time, but I'd say more like 99% of the time, they are going to look, youthful and incredible and wonderful, and it's like it's almost like this is some sort of coping mechanism. Meanwhile, the individual who remembers them, yeah, I mean, they have a lot of good memories of perhaps their parent or their whoever, right? Their brother, their sister, and they've passed, and perhaps they've died. They died of cancer or something like that. Well, it's never, ever, almost never, the state that they looked to be in their final years, right? Or final decades most of the time. Like, it's usually like they're looking young and vibrant and incredible, like in the peak form. Well, why is that? What is up with that? Like,
Well,
I don't get that, Dan. Do you?
my only thing is that most people have, when they're born as a human, they probably have an ideal state of what they would like to be. This ideal state is never attainable. It's usually beyond your body's ability to transform itself into that. Some people get pretty close. Some people are genetically gifted with a lot of attractive features, and their metabolism is just so they, they're the perfect fat to muscle ratio. I mean, some people are just lucky that way, right? So
I love to get rid of some of that fat.
yeah, sure. Wouldn't we all? No. But even those people have things that they don't like about themselves. We know this, right? From like actors, supermodels, they still are critical, and they have this ideal image of what they should or what they would like to look like. That's why I think the appearance in the afterlife is totally fluid. So people come out with these kind of like perfected images of themselves because somewhere in their subconscious they had a perfected image of themselves, and that's what it was, whatever they transformed themselves to be. And then they don't even realize that isn't even anything they're limited to. I think they could transform themselves into appear as anything that they would like to appear as.
That's on the assumption, though, that's who they are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's in the assumption that they are who they are, but also like that you could do that to yourself.
Sure.
I mean, whatever beings you're encountering, that's one thing. I'm saying that you or me in the astral plane can easily, it should be no problem to alter our appearance. For example, people go out of body. It's kind of weird because they still retain the look of their body, right? When they're out of body,
Yep.
they're even in their clothes.
Yep.
But where is that coming from? It has to be you're creating that, right? You're
It's
creating
like a comfort, like a pacifier.
Yeah, so you're still in your clothing, but you actually have no clothing. There's no clothing because you're in a, in a spirit form and in a non-physical form. What are you doing with clothes? Or what are you doing with a human body? Why shouldn't you just be like a energy field or some kind of light orb or being of light or something like that? You're doing that. You're manipulating your appearance for your own personal comfort, I think, because you have an identity with your human self, and
So you think it could be more like ego based?
Something like that. Not necessarily ego based. I just think that people become aware that after all, if you're out of your body, you're a conscious being that's not in the physical anymore. So why should your appearance should be up to whatever you desire? It should be whatever you want to project.
Which would be like peak performance, I guess, or a peak moment in time based on that specific lifetime.
It could be, or you could transform yourself into an entirely different person. I mean,
like a goblin or something.
yeah, sure. There's no limit. The only limit is your imagination, I would imagine.
It's interesting. Well, I mean, it's an interesting thought because if you're still stuck in the matrix anyways, and if we're led to believe that they are who they claim to be, which would be our deceased loved ones or pets or whoever, then it would make sense that if they are still stuck in the belief system of that everything is legitimate, that they would want themselves to be reflected in their, peak moments or, whatever they were. That was, I guess, attractive or whatever. Like, just like attractive or just like healthy, whatever the case may be.
Sure. I
it's an interesting thought.
I could tell you a sort of a story I don't think I've ever gone into detail about in any podcast anywhere else, a little bit about my past. So when I was younger, I was you had to go to the library. There was no internet. So I would always take out the books on UFOs and stuff like that. But I was also very interested in psychology. And I don't remember the author, but there was a book on how to use self-hypnosis to improve your life. So it was basically a how-to book. It explained the whole process of self-hypnosis. It was, I thought, exceptionally well written. Read that book cover to cover. As a matter of fact, I went back to the library and I used coins I had saved up, dimes, I think, for so many pages back then. Yes, you could get copies for multiple copies for a dime. Back in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s. The thing is, I Xeroxed like the whole book to keep it. So, there was no Amazon back then. I was a kid, so that was my way.
Yeah, Black Uni asked, I was thinking you might have been talking about the Sylvia method too. Like, does that sound familiar? Sylvia method.
I don't remember. I remember it was, it taught me a lot. One of the most important things the book taught me is that the subconscious mind does not understand concepts. If you start throwing things and you phrase them negatively, you're going to get negative results. And if you phrase them in a positive way, you're going to get positive results. So you don't want to just, like, if you're trying to quit smoking or something like that, you don't want to just give yourself a suggestion that I want to stop smoking, because the subconscious really just focuses on the word smoking, and you may want to end up smoking more. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So
Sure.
you have to kind of control how you word things. So I started practicing. I made my own self-hypnosis tapes and cassettes, and I did it for a reason. I had a lot of health problems when I was little. I was constantly sick all the time, and I was trying to get, physically stronger, mentally stronger, and so I performed a lot of self-hypnosis, practiced what was in the book. Generally speaking, I tried a hypnotist once, but honestly, any external force, any external person was never able to hypnotize me. But I was able to get into these states where I think it was under some level of self-hypnosis, where it was very interesting. One of the first weird things I discovered was that if I told myself that this session would be exactly 5 minutes long, I would look at the clock before I closed my eyes and started my however the book, the book had a whole procedure on what to do, how to self-hypnotize. And I would tell myself, I'm going to reawaken in 5 minutes. Well, it was weird. The first time it happened, I thought it was just a coincidence. But every time, within a few seconds of 5 minutes exactly, that's when I would wake up. And so that's when I knew, like, that this is doing something. It's working. So my main suggestion, and the one that was suggested in the book, which kind of was a coverall for everything, was every day. I still remember it. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. That was like a repeated mantra. Every day, every way, I'm getting. That's a positive suggestion. The subconscious can't misinterpret what you're saying. And so that was one of the things I did. But the other thing I did was I created sort of like a place where I could get answers. I got this idea from, there was a limited TV series about Marco Polo back in the late 70s, early 80s. It was one of those. Back then, networks had to run like these things for ratings week, and they would create these big budget productions like the Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange, King Kong. Remember that one?
I remember King Kong, yes.
Yes, King Kong. It was made for TV so they could blow out the ratings. I think NBC had that one. The Marco Polo, I think that may have been ABC. But anyway, they would have these ratings weeks, and they highly depended on these Nielsen weeks to be able to generate money from their commercials. And there was this Marco Polo one, and he, in this movie or limited series, he goes to this mountaintop, and there was like a hooded figure. Your hooded figure. It was like an oracle. It was like an oracle. Ask the oracle any question, and you would get an answer. You would get told a secret. One secret to life, ask the oracle. So I created my own like self-hypnosis imaginary place where I was, would go into like this cavern, and there would be a hooded figure there. But in my mind, it was me that I was talking to. I was aware that I was asking questions to myself. The bizarre thing was I would get these somewhat cryptic answers that made sense to me, and they were usually correct. Now, I was really young back then, and a lot of that stuff has left me now. I can't, I'm old, and I can't do that anymore. Back then it was easier as a child. I think we lose something as we get older. What do you
Don
think?
Corleone, I will leave you now.
But it was interesting. And then that I was sort of like meeting myself, or some higher version, or a liberated version of myself. Because if you're right about the eternal stuff, and if a lot of the data points to nonlinear time when you're out of the body, then isn't there a point where you're already free of the matrix?
Yeah. Yep.
And you could potentially interact with yourself in that different state. And
As
you're not
long as
talking,
you don't fall for their bullshit. I mean, like,
yeah, as long
see,
as you don't
I
fall for
think
the
what
bull.
they do is they have like a full frontal assault with and it's in it all. This is how all this stuff links. Like with deathbed premonition, so you have like the premonition that, hey, my time is limited, wrap up your affairs or whatever, and then you have deathbed visitations, and then and experiences, and like there are beings, or at least alleged beings, there, and they're always saying like, hey, your time is limited, but we'll be here for you, and it's usually in the form of deceased loved ones, or maybe perhaps those you need to make amends with, and they're telling the individual what to do. So it's like, not only are they on their way out, but they're getting interfered with. And for me, I've put it out there. It's like give me all the premonitions and bring it on, bring it on. Give me all the signs that will indicate to me that it's time to go. My time's coming, because I call it like the early warning system. You can look at it from a couple points of view. Like, some will say, oh, it's precious and, it's wonderful and this, that, like, yeah, it's precious in the sense that like it should be an early warning system for each of us to get our shit in gear, get ourselves together and figure out what we need to do for, our family, our friends, or, whoever, so that, their lives are easier moving on. But at the same time, giving us a heads up to, in my opinion, this is just me. Some may feel differently. Like, like if I get those types of systems, I want to be isolated. I don't want to be around attachments. I don't want to be around loved ones and all that. I just want to be left alone. I'd rather deal with someone like a nurse or whoever, someone I don't, no offense, not like I don't care about them, but someone that doesn't have an attachment over me, or could potentially have an attachment over me in that time. Now, some people may feel that that's heartless and horrible and all that stuff. But you know what? Like, that's when the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, it's over. Your time is coming to an end. It's like there's nothing wrong with saying goodbye and letting your loved ones know how you feel and how you want to conduct yourself when leaving here. Now, does that mean you don't care for them and this and that? No, it just means that you're not going to allow their attachment to take over your essence and blind you, whether they're alive or not. And that could be, wives, husbands, children, aunts, uncles, dogs, cats, doesn't matter what the hell it is, right? It's like, just, at that point, if you're getting the early warning system, it's real. Like, if there's some sort of something chirping in your ear, coming in your dreams, giving you premonitions, your time is coming. That's where all the data points. Like, so in my opinion, we should embrace getting that information and allowing that information to come through to us so that we can make better informed decisions, so that we can say our goodbyes in the moments that we need to, leading up to our actual death. Perhaps I went off on a tangent there, but it's that's how I feel. I feel being left alone in the end is probably the safer thing to do, because you're not allowing others' exterior energy to influence you. I mean,
Yes.
It sounds messed up, but that's how I feel. I mean, if you're at the end of your ropes, like, look, if you're on your way out anyways, what the hell does it matter? say goodbye and call it a day. I mean, it sounds heartless, but, why have attachments lingering over you? And especially from those that you love and care about, which are your soul group, which are part of this evolving process. Like, and that's where, that's not me just making it up. It's just like, that's what the data shows. It shows that we keep reincarnating with the same soul group, or, it may not be every single time, but we're incarnating over and over and over again with the same group. And if they're not ready, if our loved ones aren't ready to move on, then Dan, that's their problem. I hate to be heartless, but that's really their problem.
Yeah, well, I think that your way of looking at things was probably more closer. I'm just guessing here from the current state of like the Eastern philosophies, where their non-attachment principles, I think, have become out of control and completely ludicrous. But I think early on, because all these things probably start off with very accurate information and then they get corrupted by the system. Early on, that sounds like a more correct way to view unattachment. The way some of these people view it in the present day in some of these philosophies is that you have to become unattached to your current living loved ones. Mm-hmm. I think that's insane. But when you're that close to death, I think you have to be ready to move on, because if they're not ready to move on, they're going to anchor you here.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want them, I've told those, in my close circle, like, I don't want you, doing memorials and this and that. I don't want you concentrating on me if you can help it. Like, now, it's easier said than done, right? I mean, we have those that we love and care about and all that stuff, but, it's like, just forget me. But, it's easier for us to say from the sidelines than it is for those that we care and love for and that we've had relationships with to process or be able to initiate those types of directives, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some people are just not going to be able to follow those instructions.
Yeah, but we'll be long gone before that anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yes, totally, yes. So, I mean, that's how you get out of here. Yeah, of course, if somebody's just equally willing to get out of here at the same time, that's fine. But most people are kind of stuck here.
Yeah. So true.
And then you'll say, oh, I went to some place and I met this guy, George. And George told me all kinds of interesting things about where he lives. Okay, well, basically, the reason you saw George the way you saw him is because that was your best pattern match for somebody who will talk to you. George may have been a three-headed giraffe or something, but you wouldn't have made that match. You wouldn't have interpreted it that way. So it's your interpretation of the data that you get. And your interpretation is colored by all kinds of things. So how do you get better is you develop the skills, again, that detaches you from all that stuff that's yours, from all that fear and ideas and beliefs, and you try to get rid of all your beliefs, try to offload all your fear, and try to get as clean as possible. And then you want to be in a detached state where you're not thinking of anything and your mind is clear. And now your interpretation will be closer to what the data actually was giving you. You see? So again, there's people who are good at it and very good at it and not so good at it. But everybody thinks they're good at it. Everybody thinks that what they saw, that's what was there. There was this guy there and he had this robe on and he said the most amazing things. And here's what he said. They'll say that, but you have to realize that's their interpretation of what they got out of the data stream. If that data stream gives you things that you've got no pattern match at all for, you probably won't even remember it.
Well, yeah, but what if it's someone you love and care about for? So, like, I don't think it could be easily discounted. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends who you're running into. I'm going to play one more video from Tom.
Before you do that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I just want to point out that Tom Campbell here has just said that the Matrix lies. I just want to point that out. He has just said that the Matrix will project somebody that isn't who you think they are because it's a something useful for itself, and he has just said that it lies.
Yeah. Well said. All right, I think this is the last one. It's a short one, and then we're going to wrap things up. So this is Tom Campbell talking about Lush and Bob Monroe. So let's hit it. We may have covered this one.
So Bob didn't have a concept of the larger consciousness system and how it might interact and relate to an individuated unit of consciousness. That was not part of his mindset. He didn't have that idea. And with
so Bob basically, Dan, Bob was, he sucked at what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even though, like, he had OBEs from childhood, he didn't know what the hell was going on. He wished that, he had the amount of abbreviations and copes that, Tom had or was able to reproduce. But, Christ, Bob's a nobody.
And how
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that is a little bit
Condescending.
Yeah, condescending toward someone who's a pioneer and all this. Like Dr. Moody, I would consider him a pioneer, one of the first person to come out and give us near-death experiences. And Rob Monroe was the pioneer of out-of-body experiences, I think.
Yep, he was.
No need to be condescending. I mean, I know we can get a little irritated with the way he handled the whole Lush thing, but you can also understand that it was so emotionally disturbing for him that he just had to cope with it. He had a coping mechanism.
Yeah, and I think Tom kind of, it's like, hey, Bob's dead. I'm going to take over the reins and come up with my own jargon about reality. Just my opinion. Perhaps I'm wrong.
Yeah, I would, I can see that.
Interact and relate to an individuated unit of consciousness. That was not part of his mindset. He didn't have that idea. And without that idea, he had to come up with other explanations of the things, of the information he got. Mm-hmm. So it's... he had himself coming back and interacting with himself. And it was like this chain of his selves trying to help. You might think older selves helping younger selves or helping other selves grow up again. So he had this chain of events that were really all him. And that was his best interpretation of that. Had I had that exact same experience, I wouldn't have interpreted it that way. Mm-hmm. It would have been a different interpretation. So that's just Bob's interpretation. Bob he created a bit of a controversy he
created a controversy because he perhaps, opened a lid about what was going on here. I mean, like, even though the evidence is all around us.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, you're right. Keep going.
Okay.
So that's just Bob's interpretation. Bob he created a bit of a controversy and a can I say, maybe even some very negative information, just because of the way he interpreted the thing about Loosh. I don't know if you remember the Loosh
Oh, we
part
remember.
of Bob's book, but he basically said that he realized that we humans were like farm animals, and we were making Loosh, and there were these bigger, more superior beings outside of us that were harvesting the Loosh.
Yeah, like a farm.
So, yeah, that our reality was nothing more than a loose farm. That was his interpretation. But he missed the point of what they were trying to tell him. And because he came
missed the point
out
then.
of a Ohio farm, that's his
He
that's his
missed the-
background. He could.
He missed the point, Dan.
But this is where I really get irritated with this Campbell guy.
Me
He
too.
goes so far off the data point. Okay, first of all, Monroe did not interpret anything. He was given information.
Exactly.
It's like if I told you that it was raining today, and then you went and told other people what I told you, you didn't interpret anything. You just repeated what I said. Okay, he was given a account of why the earth existed. He didn't interpret anything. He was so depressed by it that he went into seclusion for a while. He was depressed.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he interpreted anything. He was simply told, as a matter of fact, this is where it all came from. It was very logically laid out from, the reasoning, the Loosh, that it's crude in its natural form. It's very hard to find the refined, good stuff. Somebody decided to make. I mean, we have this experience here on Earth, right?
It's it's in our face.
Right? How many people throughout these millennia have spent their time trying to perfect, invent, or purify and make more powerful drugs?
That's right.
I mean, Loosh was described as one of its things like gold. It's like a drug. It's something incredibly valuable to someone somewhere. It's very hard to find, and somebody wanted to farm it. We do that here. We need more of this. We'll farm it.
Yeah.
We'll make more. We'll manufacture it. Hard. It's not interpretation. There's no interpretation. I don't know where.
The examples are all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think KSB really nails it. It says pure gaslighting.
Yeah.
That's my opinion too.
Yeah, it's gaslighting. Yes. If it's not, he's gaslighting himself.
Yeah.
The point of what they were trying to tell him. And because he came out of a Ohio farm, that's his background. That was a metaphor that he could, that fit his data, but it was just the wrong metaphor. What he was being told was about the larger consciousness system and us. And we are lowering our entropy. We're increasing the quality of our consciousness.
Wow.
And as we do that,
I mean, can you believe the spinning that's going on here? Incredible.
Where on earth does that information? This is what I mean when I compare him to Zachariah Sitchin. Where on earth in the Loosh account? I have the books. I could reread them, but I read them more than once because they were fascinating to me. Where did he just get that information?
Yeah, nobody. No.
Nowhere.
It
Nowhere.
applies to his books. That's the difference. Bob was referring to the entropy system, guys.
Oh, that's what he was referring to.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't remember reading about that anywhere in the book.
It's not on one page of his books.
I don't even remember. I did not see any information that you could infer that from. I mean,
It's just,
wow.
I know. It just kills me.
that's his background. that was a metaphor that he could, that fit his data, but it was just the wrong metaphor. What he was being told was about the larger consciousness system and us.
Yeah.
And we are lowering our entropy. We're increasing the quality of our consciousness. And as we do that, the larger consciousness system, that's the big guys up above, the larger consciousness system, it's evolving and growing too. And as we evolve, it evolves.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's the
really
picture
evolving.
that he was getting of the larger consciousness system and us all evolving together. And we at our level are lowering our entropy, but that helps the system lower its entropy as well. And that the system created this virtual reality for us just so we could evolve.
Okay, can you stop for a second?
I know, it's unreal, isn't it, Dan? It's
This is
just
really- this is-
unbelievable.
This is blowing my mind right now, because I defy anybody who just uses normal language comprehension, whatever translation of Monroe's book you happen to be reading, if it's English and you're using just English comprehension, reading comprehension to read the Lush account. You tell me, you show me in that text what he just spouted is coming from.
Yep. No, well said. Well said.
That is ridiculous. That right there should make Campbell like a complete dunce.
No, but Bob Monroe was wrong, Dan. Bob Monroe didn't know what he was talking about. He was talking about the entropy system, bro.
That's what he was talking about. See? Because that makes absolutely no sense with what he reported. Wow.
I know. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's
It is mind-blowing.
The rings he'll run around his audience.
Eyes up above, the larger consciousness system, it's evolving and growing too. And as we evolve, it evolves. So that's the picture that he was getting of the larger consciousness system and us all evolving together. And we at our level are lowering our entropy, but that helps the system lower its entropy as well. And that the system created this virtual reality for us just so we could evolve as part of its own evolution. Well, he took that idea and turned it into, we were a bunch of cattle making loose on the loose farm, and the big thing up above us was sucking up that loose and getting an advantage from it. He missed the metaphor there. He put the wrong one in. So
it's a metaphor, Dan. Everything's a metaphor.
Okay. I mean, this is so mind blowing right now. I don't know how anybody can take this guy seriously at all. I mean, this really takes the cake. None of the other stuff that you played is this egregious. This absolutely so insane what he's saying here. First of all, he did not. I can't stress this enough. He was told a story, that he was given an account by someone who claimed to know why the Earth exists and who made it.
And he was taken on a tour.
Yes, he was taken on a tour. Yeah.
A full-fledged tour about the psychopathy of Earth.
Yes, it was a tourist destination where people could go look at the insanity of Earth from afar, from a safe distance. Couple of them went off the tour and joined the Earth realm. Ed, the director there, helping them in. Hey, this sounds cool. I want to give it a try. But there is nothing in that. Nothing. It's not. Oh my God! And this is unbelievable. So, because he knows about farming.
Yeah.
Because he knows
that's
about
why it happened. Because he grew up on a farm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So okay, it can't be that. Of course, we do things like we repeat things that our psychotic makers did to us, right? It's not like we're making farms because we are a farm. You know, it's not like there's a metaphor or anything. It's like that we're simply repeating the vicious cycle, like domestic violence. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could look at it that way. I mean, but I don't see where he's coming with this at all. It's a stretch to go any direction with it. That's not what. Okay, never mind.
I can't help but laugh, man. I've been laughing the whole time. It's just
It's funny.
Unreal.
It's funny. Anybody can take him seriously.
So
We're almost
now you
over.
have people, prison planet and do not go to the light and all that nonsense, basically based on that misunderstanding he had. So
No, it's okay. So like this is where like it's even more offensive. Like no, like you can look at NDEs, you can look at the data, the patterns, like the consistent patterns, and they show over and over and over again how we are essentially drugged with a love bomb. And if you take into account how you can be manipulated with love here in the physical, it's not far-fetched to think that this tool, which we talk about all the time, how it picked the pinnacle moment of a loving moment in your life, and you cannot compare it to what happens in the astral during something like, let's say, a near-death experience.
Right. I don't. Yeah, I mean, and the evidence kind of speaks for itself. There's no. If you just look at it without like emotion, you keep your emotions in check, and you just use like straight up common sense, logical thinking. If it was any other crime being committed, you would be able to see it. Why can't people see? This is very, very criminal what's been done to humanity.
It is.
And I don't think it's that hard to notice. I mean, and as far as like Monroe, he's a witness. He's a witness, and he's reporting what he witnesses. What he witnessed. That's called direct evidence, Tom.
Yeah.
In courts of law, a witness is direct evidence. It's not anecdotal, and it's not a metaphor. It's just.
Right. And this went on for a while. It wasn't just like one OBE session. It went on for a couple weeks or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was something that, and then it caused him to shut down. It wasn't because he was interpreting or he was inventing some kind of story based on what he was told. It's like as if Tom, if somebody witnessed like I don't know. An incident and they reported it to the police or whatever because it was a crime. And then Tom wants to come along and say, well, yes, that's what they saw, but that's not what really happened because they're interpreting it all wrong.
It's just unreal. And yeah, I mean, and even the fact, okay, I'm not even going to say it, but let's just move on. We're almost
so that was a good you have people, prison planet and do not go to the light and all that nonsense, basically based on that misunderstanding he had. Nonsense. So Bob was a good explorer, and he didn't have a lot of beliefs that warped his, what he saw, warped his interpretation. So he had a pretty good mind, pretty empty of a lot of junk. So he was good at it. But still, there was a lot of things that were just representative of his belief.
So there you go.
Only Tom is unaffected.
That's right.
Only.
That's right.
Only Tom. What would we do without him?
I know. I
can tell you what. I can tell you what I would have done.
What would we do without him?
Yeah, I would have had countless of hours of time back that I spent reading those horrifically long volumes of his, trying to make sense of what he was saying.
Yes, yes, yes. I want to thank Tom S. for the very kind super chat. It says, I feel sad sometimes wondering what happened to my loved ones and friends from my previous incarnations. Is this feeling of sadness a result of attachments? No, not necessarily, Tom. No, it's empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a fine way to think. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. There's yeah, we're most of humanity is actually filled with humans that are quite capable of being kind, loving, generous, helpful to others. But we get caught up in this group think and authority obedience, and that turns people in. It's like George Carlin said, he really loves people. As long as they're alone, but in groups
That's right.
they go out of control. He said, if you have two of them together, things start to go south.
Yeah, no,
That
he's,
is the truth.
he's
That's the
so
truth.
right. Yeah, it is the truth. It is. Okay, so one more here. Okay, Holiday Fairchild, thank you for the very kind super chat as well. Says, thanks for another great stream, guys. I really appreciate your insight. This is the closest to my views I've had my whole life. Thank you.
Well, that's
You're
very nice.
welcome. That is
Thank you.
nice. Okay, so I want to provide Dan any closing thoughts before we wrap things up. And I will be over on the Truth in Gaming channel after this. So anyone who's interested will be headed into Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And a link should appear in the chat afterwards. But any closing thoughts on our good friend Tom Campbell?
No, I think I said my piece with Tom. I really want to thank you, Mark, for having me on. And I really appreciate everybody out there that, was so kind and sent me all those positive messages. And I hope I don't have any setbacks, but right now I haven't felt this good since I don't know when. I've got my medicine sorted out. I'm trying to get physically, rehabilitated. Obviously, you can tell I have a lot more energy than I had recently, where I was barely able to stay with a podcast for more than 45 minutes or an hour at the most. I had a really great time tonight, and I really appreciate everybody out there that takes time and interest in this kind of stuff, because we're a very small community in a very large world of belief systems that don't want to discuss this in a kind of sensible way.
Really, really well said, Dan. Really well said. So, thank you, everybody. It's been fun. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone listening over on Dan's channel and my channel on Odyssey, Rumble, and YouTube. Appreciate you all. I know Dan is going to be opening up a Rumble channel in the near future as well, and also putting out some more regular podcasts, so be on the lookout for that. And don't forget to check them out at I was about to say Wayne Bush's channel, trickbythelight.com, but check out Wayne Bush too, and check out Dan at overwatchproject.com, and he also is Overwatch Project on Odyssey and Overwatch channel on YouTube. You can find the links to those in my description. And if you're interested in supporting Dan's work, you can also find donation links as well. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all, and look forward to catching up with you again soon, Dan. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'll talk to everybody later. Have a good day, good night, whenever you happen to be listening to this. Bye, everybody.
All right, good. Take care, everybody, and maybe see some of you on the gaming channel shortly. Thank you.
Yep.